What a great day for, oh, this stupid GPS won't stay put. Oh, this is nice. I like this. And will you just stay put? Waterfront. I like that a lot. Vibrations in the windscreen. Okay, I gotta fix GPS. I gotta fix this now. It's been about a month since I built and installed the dashboard on my Suzuki DR650, and I have to say, overall, I'm really pleased with it. The windscreen still provides a really nice calm pocket of air, and my concern over it being pulled back and forth because it sits a little further forward of the handlebars on the highway really wasn't an issue. It still seems as stable as it ever did. The power outlets that are there work and function exactly like I planned, and they provide more than enough power options for me as I travel around. However, there are a couple issues that have sort of popped up that I've noted on this particular modification that I need to address today. The first of which is the GPS mount. Now, I'm still using the factory Garmin GPS mount that I had before I made the dashboard extension. And even back then, I would find that because the bike vibrates quite a bit, and when you're off-road or even on sort of rough gravel roads, well, the GPS would eventually move down to a point where you can't see it anymore, and yet be constantly adjusting the position of it. So today, I'm going to change that out for a RAM mount. It should make it much more stable, and hopefully it'll solidify the GPS in the positions that I want it to stay in. The second issue that I'm going to address today is a little bit of wobble that the windscreen has up around 70 kilometers an hour. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to attach or pin together the factory fairing and the upper part of the dashboard that I made, and I'm going to do it well, in a pretty basic way. It's actually, I wouldn't say barbaric, but it's certainly not the most refined way. I'm going to use a couple nylon zip ties to tie those two pieces together. Now, I rarely am going to have to get in here, hopefully, to change fuses, and that's really the only reason I need to flip this dashboard open. So the zip ties are a really easy way to sort of cinch those two pieces together. And if I do need to get in there, I always carry a few extra zip ties with me regardless. So it's not a big issue if I have to cut those off just to get in to change a fuse. Why don't I show you exactly what I'm talking about with a little bit of footage, and then we'll get back and maybe we'll start with the GPS and get that tightened up. Okay, let's go. I'm riding about 70 kilometers an hour, I suppose, here over some bumpy roads. And you can see that the actual windscreen does move quite a bit, and the GPS does vibrate and eventually ends up looking down at my crotch. I notice if I hold the dash and the fairing together, it settles down the windscreen quite a bit. So I think this is the direction that I want to go in, and it should help with the GPS as well. Now, to address both the GPS and this vibration, I need to get the windscreen off first. Now, the GPS I think I'm going to set to the side this time, and it'll then sort of sit perfect at the height that I want. What I'll do is I'll take off the old mount, drill new holes, and then from there I can probably fasten the plastic fairing to the dash, and then adjust this where I need it. All right, let's get the windscreen off first. My DR has this custom windscreen on here, and it's held in place by these 3 cap head screws. This is actually a BMW 650 Dakar windshield that came with the bike when I bought it, and I made this bracketry to hold it in place. I find it's a little bit heavy because it's made out of steel, but once I get all the 3 retaining cap head screws out, the windscreen just lifts off.
And here you can see the original GPS mount that I used. Basically, I just took the Garmin suction cup mount and modified it by using this wooden riser block that I made out of hardwood. And you can see it here. It's pretty simple, pretty basic. After that, it really is just a matter of taking out the 3 retaining screws that hold the chin fairing onto my modified dash. If I can ever keep the screws straight here. It's pretty simple. You've probably done this yourself, and once you get the 3 screws out, the chin fairing lifts off as any other DR. I mounted these rubber cushions with some hot glue temporarily, and these will provide some cushioning between the dash and the fairing itself. So once I find the location, I'll mark it with a marker and then drill a hole through each corner the same diameter as the width of the zip tie that I'm going to use. Once I'm done, I'm going to take a conditioning disc on my angle grinder here, and I'm going to scuff the area up so that the glue will hold a little bit better the next time I apply it. And I'm also going to use this die grinder to scuff up the back of the rubber. Once that's done, I'm going to use some construction grade hot glue, and I'm just going to glue these in place. It only needs to hold them until I get the zip ties in place, and it works pretty good. This stuff's pretty strong. I am going to use a couple grommets here to help protect the zip tie when it passes through the dashboard. Now, these are normally used for wires passing through a firewall or any piece of metal, but I'm going to use it like this to protect the zip tie. So I'll measure that surface in between the 2 flats, and it turns out to be about 1/4 inch or a little over 6 millimeters in diameter. So I'll drill a couple holes up in the corner of the dash itself, and then using a pick and a small screwdriver and that, I'll walk these grommets in until they sit nice and flush. You can see here, and the zip tie fits nice through them too. It's a nice little touch. It just helps protect things. I'm going to use my soft jaws here in my vise just to pinch the bracket that I have built on the chin fairing. Once I get that tightened up, I'm going to sort of dry fit and choose a location for this ram mount. Now this is an all metal ram mount, so it's pretty strong. I'm pretty comfortable with it. Once I get the spot picked out, I'll use my scratch awl here just to mark the holes. I'll follow this up just by drilling out the pilot holes with a small drill bit, and I'll double check to make sure that everything's centered before I come back and drill the holes to the proper size with this 1/4 inch drill bit. And it looks like everything lined up well here. Following this, I'll get a couple brand new cap head screws, a washer, and a locking nut for the back of the mount, and I'll just tighten these up. Now, I probably should put a washer on the top there, but I'll be honest, I didn't like the look of it, and because this is a metal bracket, I'm pretty comfortable that it's going to be okay. So I'll just tighten these up, and you'll see I'm using metric fasteners here. We're in Canada, and it's actually hard to find metric fasteners in Canada, believe it or not. It's ridiculous, but I like to keep everything all metric on the metric bike. And then I'll just remount the fairing. It's pretty basic. I always find this lower screw here bolt hard to get in. I don't know why, but eventually I get it. And then I'll just take the zip ties and feed them through the holes that we've made. And once I tighten these down, it really does stiffen up the entire front assembly. And once I trim off the excess here, you can really see that that cushion stops the fairing from being deformed too much from the pressure of the zip tie. I kind of like that as a feature. And we'll just tighten up the second one here and trim off the excess. I actually came back, Carl suggested that I trim those so there's no little protruding knobs out, so I did that with a razor blade afterwards, but man oh man, it seems really, really good.
Well, this feels way stronger already. Much less vibration. I think this is going to be a good little modification and a little bit of tuning. I think I'll mount the GPS next, get the windshield back on, and then sort of adjust it and see how things go. Actually, maybe I'll put the windshield on first. Let's do that now.
The last part is really just about putting the windscreen back on. So I'll thread these cap head screws back in by hand, and then with my drill chuck set really low, I'll run these back up. You don't want to crack the Lexan here, but it does save some time.
Yeah, much more solid than it was before. I think this is going to work really good. I like the placement of this, but basically if you look at it here, what I've got is I've got a 1" to 17mm adapter from Ram here, and it fits in the back of the ball socket. So if I just leave it like this, I'm still going to have the same problem where this sort of floats around. I can always take the GPS off by clicking it, and it leaves the mount in place here. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the angle that I want. I'm going to JB weld that ball to the mount here. These are easy to get. I think I've got 2 or 3 of them from past GPSs. And then I still have some adjustment with the 1" ball on the Ram mount. This is going to take a bit of time, but I'm going to glue it up, let it sit overnight, and then this should be ready for a ride tomorrow. Let's get that done now. That really leaves only one question, and that is, did the modifications we made in today's video solve the 2 original problems that I had? The GPS vibrating out of place and the windscreen moving around a little bit over 70 kilometers an hour. The answer is yes. Both of those issues are gone, at least for the most part. The windscreen is a lot tighter now that it's attached to the fairing. It's stabilized the whole windscreen itself. I'm quite happy with that. The GPS doesn't move around at all. However, it does vibrate. At certain speeds and certain RPMs, the actual screen vibrates a little bit. I think that has more to do with the fact I've mounted it now on a 5" Ram mount. So I'm sure that's the reason why it's got some vibration in it. I don't care where you mount it on the bike, 5 inches of Ram mount's going to have some vibration. So overall, I'm very pleased with both the modifications. There are a few things I did notice. I took the bike out at night because I had a couple questions about how the headlight would be impacted now that I've moved it out. There's 2 things that came to mind. One is the headlight actually vibrates a little bit now. I think because it's out about 4 inches on that new dashboard, and the fact that it's rubber mounted in the old headlight assembly rubber mounts, it does vibrate a little bit at certain speeds. And it's interesting, you can see it on road signs where the headlight just sort of shimmers a little bit now on the road signs. I don't believe that it's a big issue, but I do wonder if it's going to shorten the life of my Cyclops headlight bulb. Time will definitely tell. The other thing that I did notice about it which isn't a huge thing, but the headlight was definitely pointing off to the left. So I must not have quite got the new hole squared up somehow. It was easily fixed with the factory adjustments that are still on the headlight assembly, and I managed to move it back and center it on the road so that I wasn't blinding oncoming traffic. Other than those two things, I am really happy with my dashboard extension, and I can't wait to try it all season long, see how durable it is, and see if there's any other issues that I need to bring to everyone's attention in case you're interested in making something like this. But it has been a really fun project. Okay, if you like the videos, please leave a comment. Let me know what you think of things and areas you want me to focus on. I'm really having a great time. My friend Carl's having a riot doing these things too. And in fact, he's just come over. He's got a few things he wants me to look at on his DR. So I'm going to get back into the shed, but I hope to see you soon here on Dino's Tinker Shed. You have yourself a great day. It's really spectacular out here.